Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Hello. Me again. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt. I'm your presenter here at the Cisco Theatre. Everyone well? You good, sir? Good. Excellent. Smart. Good. Thumbs up. Thumbs up for the Cisco Theatre. Good. Third day at Cisco Live 2023. We're all still alive and happy. That's the main thing. Right, well, let's crack on for our next speaker of the day. I hope to give a warm welcome, please, to Marcio Drummond Costa. A round of applause. Don't be shy.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I hope you can hear me well, okay? And thank you. I know that's not the best time for the presentation. Just after lunch is challenging, but let's go through that. This afternoon, we are going to talk about the scaling of SD-WAN network. So in the new SD-WAN release, we have a lot of improvement in terms of scaling your multi-tenant SD-WAN network, and that's what we are going to talk about here. Many of you probably are managed service providers or have the interest in deploying SD-WAN in a way that you can scale up across regions, across multiple customers, as a managed service or for large enterprise. And you'll see that in our latest release, we have a lot of improvement on this one. Here are the information that you probably have from you can join our discussion, you can continue your education. We are going to invite you at the end, but now as well, we have a lot of stands in the World of Solutions just behind me here. We have a lot of stands providing demos for everything that we are talking about here. So I invite you and encourage you to join us there. We'll be here the whole week for questions, demos, and so on. So we are talking about, first of all, we are talking about multi-tenancy. What is multi-tenancy and improvements in the way that we are delivering multi-tenancy, the way that you can simplify your management, your deployment and your management of your SD-WAN for your enterprise or for your customers. We're going to talk about co-management and improvements in co-management. We know that sometimes we are managing a network or are providing a managed service, and you have customers and you have enterprise that they want a sort of visibility on or co-management on your service and how challenging that can be, right? And we are going to cover that as well. We are going to talk about SecOps, or security operations. When you talk about SD-WAN now, security is a must to talk about. Integrate local security, integrated security in the devices, security together, cloud security, integration with SASE, and so on. We have improvements on that as well in our UX, and talking about that. Multi-cloud, of course, SD-WAN, networks, cloud, and multi-cloud is a very hot topic as well. We are going to cover improvement that we have and how we position the multi-cloud story in this SD-WAN strategy that we are talking about, and multi-region fabric, right? So the starting point for this conversation is, when we talk about SD-WAN, we need to start the conversation in showing that the requirements of the network, the requirements of WAN networks are changing, and they are quite different than before. And that's a very important starting point, because many times the enterprises, they are still concerned, when we talk about networks, still concerned about the routing protocols, ACLs, VRFs, BGP, and so on. In terms of security, how do I do my traditional security with firewalling, internet gateway, centralized internet gateway? How do I segment the network in VRFs and so on? All that technical information. Nowadays, we have new requirements because a lot of networking and a lot of the services are moving very rapidly to the cloud. Regardless the size of the enterprise, a large enterprise, a mid enterprise, a very big service provider, public service, and so on, the adoption of cloud services and different levels, different scales of cloud services is a must, and every day is even more important on that. Does that mean that all the traditional routing technologies that we are talking about, does that mean that it's not important anymore? Of course, that's not the case. That's very important. The underlay on the network, the transport, the connectivity itself, the underlay of this network, this is still very important. And we need to be prepared for that, but that's not enough anymore. For providing for your internal customer, for your external customer, for providing a proper network services, a proper managed services, which addresses the needs that the enterprise have today, you have to provide and you have to worry about a good and a very reliable underlying services, but you also have to be prepared to have multi-cloud connectivity, application visibility, automation, and a segmentation which addresses the needs for this new world. And that's where we position SD-WAN. All the SD-WAN conversation starts from here, and we're not talking about scaling SD-WAN. Multi-tenants is not different. We come from this starting point as well. A very important part of SD-WAN, probably many of you are already familiar with that, but it's good to mention the main aspects or the foundations, the main planes, the structure, the architecture of our SD-WAN network. We have the management and the orchestration plane, and the vManage, the single pane of glass, is the management plane, is where you do all the configuration, all the visibility, all the intelligence that you input in the network is done in the vManage. We have the control plane, which are the Cisco vSmart. The control plane is what is exchanging routing information, control information with the devices. We are going to provide whatever you configure and you integrate from here, in the management plane. We are going to provide this intelligence and that control to the network. And we have the data plane. The data plane is where the information or the data information, the customer information travels. Are the routers, are the CPEs, are the Cat8K routers, are the devices, and is where the real information going on. So this is the structure of SD-WAN, and this is important, these main pillars, to understand where the improvements are and how we can scale much more, even than before, for large-scale network service managed services on SD-WAN for multi-tenancy. When we talk about SD-WAN as well, not only we talk about delivering those new network requirements, delivering those new services, which is important, but it's also important for enterprise as well, the notion of cost reduction. We have cost reduction with SD-WAN. And for managed service providers, we have cost reduction on providing an SD-WAN service as well. If you can have a multi-tenancy, you can have a multi-tenancy on your structure. It means that the same infrastructure that you have we need one single infrastructure, deployment infrastructure, management infrastructure to deliver this service for many different customers or for many different enterprises. When you have the co-management, when we can reduce the costs with an overlay co-managed as well. Multi-region fabric, we are going to cover it, we are going to talk about it. And a single monitoring dashboard. Even if you have multiple customers, even if you have multiple services, it's very important to maintain a single pane of glass, a single point of control. Otherwise, you have a complexity that will increase your cost, will increase your end cost, and at the end of the day, it will delay and it will reduce your service availability and responsivity. So first of all, let's talk about multi-tenancy. Whom here is not familiar with multi-tenancy or doesn't? Okay. So multi-tenancy is, first of all, we position the multi-tenancy and we know that in many enterprises and sometimes in our internal customers as well, the finance people, the first reason, and a very good point that we introduced the multi-tenancy is the cost savings. And there are huge cost savings associated to multi-tenancy. There are huge CapEx savings. Of course, if you have the same infrastructure where you can deliver the service from the same infrastructure to many different customers, the CapEx savings is really is very easy to be seen, and we have around more than 85% because we have a more efficient use. We can have savings in servers, hosting, cabling, all the hosting capability. But more important than that, the biggest saving we have in multi-tenancy is in the OpEx side, because we have the management of the system. You don't have to manage several different customers, different teams, for different infrastructure. You can have the same management team, the same management platform, and you manage different customers from them. With these, with savings on lifecycle management and disaster recovery, in design as well, we can have more than 90% of savings when we talk about multi-tenancy. And what is multi-tenancy in a way? Multi-tenancy is that we have the control plane, the management plane, the orchestration plane. We can have the same infrastructure from there, and we can have multiple tenants or multiple customers sharing that same infrastructure. With that, and we can have differences, customer A, customer B, customer X, customer Y, different requirements, different topologies, different verticals, and so on, and you can deploy a unique service. You can deploy your SLAs, you can deploy each of these specific customers are expecting, you can deploy for all of them, you can deploy for all of them from the very same infrastructure. So first of all, what is the vManage multi-tenancy? I presume that most of you should be familiar with the vManage and our single pane of glass, our management system. And here we have the pictures of the new UX, or the new user interface of the Cisco vManage. And in the Cisco vManage, we can provide for this multiple customer, and you have from the vManage as a provider, you can have two different views in the Cisco vManage. You can have the provider view, as the name says. As the name says, you are going to control your provider infrastructure, you are going to control your services and your controllers as a whole, and you can have the tenant view as well. For every single tenant, you click. I'm going to show here. You click, and you have the unique and the specific configurations for every one of the customer. From the provider operation, so you have an user and an admin of the network. From the provider view, you can, in the provider view, in the vManage, you can select your tenant, but you can have from the provider view all the general configurations. You have the visibility for the management plane and for the control plane from the provider configuration. You configure your service, not things for a specific customer, but you configure the service. You can do the SSH, you can access the controllers from there. You can do all the certificates, you can add vSmart, which are the controllers, you can add vBond, you can configure all the settings for your service provider organization, the user, and so on. All this information you can do in the provider view, in the provider operation. And when you need to apply policies for a specific customer, I have a customer A which has those specific policies for that customer, some specific certificates for that customer. I need to go to a device, to an edge device, to a data plane for that specific customer. For that, of course, I do that from the provider view. So from the provider, I go to a specific tenant for a specific customer, and from there, I am managing the service for that specific customer. So the same person in your admin team, the same engineer is there and is doing the configuration for the provider. It needs to deploy a policy for a specific customer, for a specific tenant, goes to that specific tenant and add VPNs, integration management, release management for the vEdges, and so on. Now, something new as well, now we have the multi-tenants for the control plane as well, for the vSmart. You don't need to have dedicated vSmart for specific tenants. In the past, we have the vManage was multi-tenant. We could have different tenants in the vManage, but you needed different vSmarts or dedicated vSmart for dedicated tenants or for dedicated customers. Now we have the multi-tenancy in the control plane as well. Different customers, different tenant, sending control plane or OMP, control traffic to the vSmart. And the vSmart is multi-tenant as well. So we have CPU, memory, routing table, policies on the vSmart, completely separated for a specific tenant, for a specific customer, and it adds a lot of efficiency on this as well. So we can have the configuration, the vManage, you apply the configuration, the vManage sends to the vSmart. The vSmart, if you're familiar, is talking OMP to the edge, and the vSmart now can do that separately, completely on a multi-tenancy as well. When we talk about multi-tenancy, and we are bringing the multi-tenancy to the control plane as well. A question that we always have, especially from managed service providers, is very good, very nice, but then about the data plane, right? And there's a lot of use cases for a multi-tenancy in the data plane as well. If you are a provider, for example, for retail, and you are in a shopping center where you can put only one device, you have a small space and have multiple different customers there, or in an airport, or in an event center like that. There are many use cases that you need to have, or you will gain a lot of efficiency if you have this multi-tenancy until the data plane as well, until the router. It's coming this calendar year. It's not there yet, but it's in the roadmap. It's coming shortly this calendar year. The ability of bringing the multi-tenancy to the edge as well. So you can have this multi-tenancy even to the router. The router, you can have the same router, different tenants on that, and we will have from the data plane to the management and orchestration plane a full multi-tenant solution, which is much easier. I don't know if any of you here would have a use case or a needed use case that you could have benefit from that. If you do, it will come in later this calendar year, and it will bring a lot of value on here as well, right? This is in terms of multi-tenancy. We have some demos about multi-tenancy in the World of Solutions. I invite you to go there in one of our booths. But multi-tenancy is not the only improvement that we are bringing in this perspective, in these new releases of the vManage. We have the co-management as well. When you talk about co-management, and when we speak about this, to manage service providers or service providers, it sounds like music to some people's ears. Because, yes, I know how it is, right? I see some people smiling here, and they probably agree with me what you're talking about. Because for the service provider perspective, it's much easier to have a full managed service. And according to the IDC, 46% of the enterprise, they want a full managed service. A full managed service is that the speed of deployment, the automation, the industrialization of the solution makes the operation much easier, much seamless, especially for the service provider. However, many of the enterprise, around 25% of the enterprises, they want to have their own house solution because for internal policies, because of the internal IT team, or they need the specificities and flexibility that an industrial, standardized managed service cannot provide. So 25% of the enterprises say, no, I prefer to do it myself. I prefer to do it in-house because I have my own specificities, my own uniqueness, and my IT team is going to manage that. And all the rest, the 29% of the enterprise, are somewhere in the middle. They want the facility, they want the simplicity of having a managed service with a partner, a provider, providing the service to them, and at the same time, they need to have their own visibility because they need to be able to apply or to change very rapidly some policies depending on what they have, or they want to do their own troubleshooting, or they want to do. Who is here from a managed service provider probably knows what I'm talking about. And the co-manager resides exactly here. So we have the ability to tell to our customers, okay, that's not a problem anymore. Based on role-based access control, I can provide you, Mr. End Customer, the ability to view, to read, or even to write and change some of the configuration that are going to make you happy and provide the level of flexibility that you want, without protecting myself or without allowing you to change all the networks and making change that can impact my SLAs, that can impact what's in the contract, and I can be penalized or the service can be affected by that. So this is the co-management. This is a quick video so you can have a read and write for every specific customer, and you can provide that level of granularity based on role-based access control, RBAC. You can provide that level of granularity and visibility on top of that. When you are talking about the simplicity and the automation and the waste of creation, it's not only related to the co-management, it's more than that. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the Cisco SD-WAN self-service portal, the SSP. The SSP is an automation tool that we have So isn't that where you can access this portal and you can you create your overlay, you automate the creation of management plane, of control plane. You can do some RBAC on top of that. It makes the deployment pretty much quicker. You have visibility of your SD-WAN network, visibility of your overlay, and is a very important tool. It's not very related. It's not pretty much a new thing. It is the SSP has been here for a while, but we are taking the chance of inviting you to have a new look at that, because that's a very powerful tool that we have for SD-WAN deployment, automation, and scaling at the end. Another new point that we have, and especially for large networks, when I talk about large networks, security is a must. And I know that in every single deal, we have in a way of people concerned and the end customer concerned about security in our network. And we have a lot, probably you are seeing here in this event, we have a lot of improvement in terms of security. A lot of improvements in integrated security, or the security that run in the SD-WAN router, managed by vManage, integrated firewall, IPS, URL filtering, AMP, and others, and SASE integrated security as well. Integration with Umbrella, the ability from the SD-WAN, from the vManage to automatically create tunnels to Umbrella, for example, integration with our SaaS security cloud services, and so on. But one question that we always have is, okay, but my customer, we have some people that are network administrators, and those guys are concerned with QoS, the quality of the tunnels, the BFD, the connectivity, the SLA of the links, and so on. And we have other teams, completely different teams, that look after the security. And how do we handle that? Because if my customer has visibility of the vManage, how can I guarantee that if you are a security guy, you are going to see the security part of the network, and you are a network guy, you are going to see the connectivity, the quality, the QoS, the tunnel SLA, and so on, part of the network. Now we have the security persona, and you can define a user, if a security or a network persona, and that specific user will land when it logs into the vManage in the ability to see what they have to see in terms of security. So we find a security persona in a specific customer. When I log into the vManage, the main page is not going to show me how many routers are up and down, or the quality of the tunnels, the health of the connectivity of the network. That's a very important information, but maybe an important information for the network team, for the network guys. For me, I'm a security person. I want to know how is the security in that situation. And I'll land on this page, and in this page on security, I have security here, and in this page, I will have the dashboard with the overall security for all sites or for a single site. I can see how is my firewall, in the case the firewall integrated to the router, how are the policies, how are the hits, and so on. The IPS, the URL filtering, the SIG tunnel status, AMPs, and so on. That's an important improvement, and we are getting a lot of feedbacks of customers and partners and enterprises that is very important as well. So when I talk about SD-WAN, we talk about multi-cloud. Always talk about multi-cloud, and always have improvements about multi-cloud. When you talk about multi-cloud, something very important is the cloud on-ramp. And cloud on-ramp for infrastructure, we have cloud on-ramp for multi-cloud, cloud on-ramp for SaaS, for software as a service. When you have infrastructure as a service, the cloud on-ramp for multi-cloud is the ability to automatically extend my SD-WAN to cloud service providers. So from the vManage, I spin up connections to AWS, to Microsoft Azure, to Google Cloud, completely automatically, and I have an SD-WAN end there. And all the visibility and control and the tunnel and the BFDs that I have, I can automatically have to my cloud service provider as well, completely automatic, and then I can apply the security policies, I can have all the application experience on the cloud, all the SD-WAN capabilities that we have, we can have that automatically. It's very simple, it's very easy to be done. We have a multi-cloud demo in the World of Solutions as well. I invite you to go there. And also, something important that we have as well is I don't know if you're familiar with SDCI or middle mile. We are talking about SD-WAN and the capabilities and the services that you can provide in the overlay, but you are network guys, right? There's no magic. If the underlay is not working well, or if the underlay is not the optimum, is not the most efficient one. At the end of the day, we'll have problems in the visibility, in the performance, and in the user experience. For that, the concept of the middle mile is a concept that is coming each more in the network, and SDCI, and Cisco and SD1. From vManage, we have integration with the main middle mile partners, the main middle mile operators as Megaport, Equinix, and Google Cloud, completely automated and done by the vManage as well. And to finish, last but not least, a very important feature. We have 2 demos in the world of solution based on that as well, is the multi-region fabric. Multi-region fabric, and we know again that one is evolving to a service exchange. When you talk about the internet is changing from a network to networks, is changing to a network of data centers. The connectivity, the customers when they need connectivity to cloud providers, right? And for this, also the integration with the SDCIs and the mid-miles and the collocators, they are very important, and they are part of the discussion here. But how do I manage that, all of that, if I have a very large network that is spread across many regions, many places, and so on? Without the multi-region fabric, what our customers, and we have, I support service providers, and we have a lot of customers that have this situation, that they have networks in different regions, very big fabrics, very large fabrics, and how do they manage the routing between the regions? It's not simple, right? It's not simple. We have a complex networking, and we have to do some traffic summarization, when do the policies for the advertised networks, which I can advertise, which I cannot advertise, the regions. Sometimes the regions, different regions of a specific company, they have different policies, different topologies, and so on. And in the current way, or in the old-fashioned way, is not easy. It's difficult, and it's complex, very complex to be managed. So MRF is a solution which transforms from this situation with centralized vSmart, centralized intelligence for a very big and spread fabric, to something that we can have automatically identify in different regions, connected via a mid-mile or a partner backbone, and that network, the SD1 is capable to identify. This is a multi-region fabric, so these are different regions. So I know what can be transported across them. I know for every region the ideal cloud interconnection for them, for cloud services, for software as a service, and so on. So it's much simpler, much more scalable, and simpler not only for deploying, but fundamentally not only for designing and deploying, but fundamentally for operating and managing that. The MRF use cases, the main use cases, you don't have to have a global network. If you have a large network with different regions that can apply different, for example, could be enterprises that are in acquisitions and so on, different regions, you can have, it's much more intuitive to do user groups, different topologies, is pretty much scalable, it's pretty much easier, and the operations, I've seen that happen, the operations and the management can be much more simple and much easier. I don't know if you have the chance of troubleshooting networks, not only SD1 networks, in a global scale, when there's a lot of traffic interaction, many, sometimes thousands or tens, hundreds of thousands of network prefixes traveling up and down all over the world. This helps a lot, not only for design, for operations of large network as well. And at the end, what multi-region fabric and what we spoke about provide greater scalability, flexibility, and performance. It's easier to manage, it's easier to design, it's easier to route, it's easier to check and to troubleshoot the overlay and the underlay, it's easier for doing redundancy planning, it's easier and a flexible architecture if you need to do some change, and everything which is easier, everything which is simpler, everything which is easier to deploy and to design at the end of the day is what? Is is more cost effective. And sometimes all the times, the decision makers in our customers, in our internal networks, are a lot oriented to what's going to save me operational costs, what are going to save me CapEx deployment costs, and all the solutions that we're talking about here. Specifically, multi-region fabric for very large networks can address very well and exactly about that. So I could spend days here talking about the new features that we have, the new scalability features and the improvements that we have in the new UX for the Cisco SD-WAN, but we unfortunately for this session only had half an hour. I didn't prepare a demo because we have many demos for everything we spoke here. We are going to find in the World of Solution, at the back of the World, a lot of booths, a lot of stalls about SD-WAN, where we can have one-to-one demos for you, for most of what you spoke here, and more, and for other improvements that were not covered here as well. I strongly encourage and invite you to go there. And I don't think we have time for questions. I have only 7 seconds, but I will be there the whole week. I'll be here as well, more than happy to get individual questions offline and provide you all the information that you need for not only scale, but adopting, designing, and deploying SD-WAN, especially if you, as a managed service, if that's the case. Thank you very much for staying here and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you, Marcio. One more time for Marcio. There we are. And yeah, please do go and see him at the World of Solutions. And I'm sure if there are any questions